Your voice, your platform for exchange of views on topical issues that concern you and our nation.
It is therefore quite comic and laughable to hear of some actors in the world giving us lectures about democracy. You give me a lecture about democracy? What are your own credentials?
Join us Monday to Friday from 7 to 8 p.m. as we tackle issues of national interest.
Mahatma Gandhi was a hero for India, but was so much of a hero to the Africans who were struggling to have the liberation. Nelson Mandela was a hero to the South Africans, but more so to the Africans, and more so to the entire world, about how you can fight freedom without actually having to hold the gun yourself and fight. So it all depends. It can be global, it can be regional, it can be national, it can be communal, and it can be family.
Your voice, only on UBC Radio. Inspiring Uganda.
This is your voice program on UBC Radio. UBC Radio, inspiring Uganda.
You are still tuned to UBC Radio programs, and I'm Henry Baguma, Herbert Chigundu. This time around, we focus on Uganda Prison Services. We're hosting the spokesperson, Commissioner Frank Baine, to take us through.
Thank you, Mr. Henry Baguma, and dear listeners. As you have heard, I'm called Frank Baine, Commissioner of Prisons and Prison Spokesperson. As of today, we have 75,000 inmates, of which 38,000 are convicts and 37,000 are remands. Of course, we have about 2,000 women with about 300 children in the prison. The staff managing them are 14,783.
So, is the population increasing, stagnant? How would you state or rate?
Mr. Henry Baguma, dear listeners, unfortunately our prison population is increasing by 10% per annum. And unfortunately our construction capacity to manage the crisis of congestion, we are expanding at the rate of 2% per annum. So that's why the congestion is increasing. Right now our capacity is 20,000, but in the actual sense, we are having 75,000 inmates. That means where there is supposed to be one, almost 4 inmates are occupying the same space.
Isn't it worrying the state because increasing number of prisoners or inmates?
Yeah, worrying it is, of course, but then it is about forming strategies to rectify the problem. And that's why these days court has and the DPP have a number of programs like plea bargaining, like these special sessions, so to reduce, try and minimize backlog of cases. But of course, the challenge we have is that the rate of population, the dwindling rate of resources, makes it practically impossible to catch up with those increased numbers.
But where's therefore the biggest challenge you face therefore as prison authorities when the population reaches that high?
Definitely congestion is the master problem, because with it means you cannot do proper rehabilitation, you cannot do proper segregation, you cannot control the contagious diseases. So the health of the prisoners is compromised. So generally the congestion is a kingpin of the problems that we face as an institution of government.
So is this only at Luzira prison here or across the country? What sort of picture can you paint to us?
We have 264 prison units. They are grouped in 19 regions. But basically 99% of all those prisons, they are beyond capacity. They are holding beyond their capacities.
What, sir, is the required the international ratio, maybe even Uganda standards?
International ratio is that a prisoner is supposed to enjoy a space of 3.6 square meters. The African revised version would be 2.6, square meters. But like I said, now that area which is meant for prisoners now is being occupied by 4.
What about the staff? Do you have enough staff capacity and other?
The staff can't be enough, because if you have 75,000 and then they are being managed by 1.4 people, I mean 14,000 managed by 14,000, then that tells you that where there is supposed to be 1 prisoner, the international ratio is 1 staff to 3 prisoners. But now for us, we are at 1 staff to at least 6 prisoners. That means we handle more than double the requirement of staffing.
Yes, but I don't think you should have problems with the staff, because Ugandans want jobs. Quite a number of unemployed people outside there.
Of course, with employment, the budget determines how many people you employ, for how long, and when do you do it. So, yes, people want jobs, but does the country have the capacity to pay them? So you only recruit if you have the capacity to pay. And according to our funding, we are operating, of course, at about 45% of our budget. Then that means that it cannot be a priority to go into some of those.
Now, sir, when you talk about congestion, specifically, what do you mean? Sitting capacity, sleeping, the space for...
The space that a prisoner operates in, including sleeping, is 3.6 meters squared, international recommended standard. But for us, where there is supposed to be 1 prisoner, we actually have 4 to 5 prisoners.
What about feeding and sleeping?
Of course, feeding, all this impacts on feeding, because the more prisoners you have, the more you have to feed. Yes, we grow our own crops, but we are not able to go through the entire year. So we feed ourselves for 7 months, then the 5 months we are fed by government through the suppliers. Yes.
So what sort of meals is an inmate entitled to?
Well, a prisoner is supposed to eat 3 meals. Breakfast, which normally comes between 6 and 6:45. Lunch, which is midday. And dinner, which is normally served by 5 p.m.
So you are meeting that at least?
The majority of the prisons, yes, do that. But some prisons like Upper Chitaria, they are having a bit of challenge because the numbers are very high. But the rest, it's working out for them.
Traditionally, people were saying posho is for inmates and prisoners. I don't know whether it is still the same case, or are there days when they can have some piece of meat and in the morning they have some maybe milk, tea and bread?
Well, what I can say is that the posho and beans are our staple food. Of course, when they get inside, then they are also mixed with the beans were mixed with vegetables. But sometimes locally, or even like towards Christmas, normally there is change of diet for the inmates and sometimes also the staff.
Okay, then talk also to me about treatments, those who fall sick and those type of situations. And maybe some of them admitted when they're already sick, others fall sick when already in prison.
Yes, when we admit people in our facility, we have what we call pre-entry examination, medical examination, which tells us whether this person has an ailment. That's where even we are able to detect some women who are pregnant and they don't know they are pregnant. So that gives us a healthy baseline. Then, of course, from there, then the different recommendation for different treatments commences, and of course, sometimes it may require referral. If it is, let's say, in a unit like Chigo refers to the National Hospital, which is Makshon Bay. Then if Makshon Bay can't handle completely, then they escort the prisoner to the next hospital, which is normally Mulago.
So even when an inmate is taken, for example, to a private or government hospital outside the prison, he still remains a prisoner, and to what extent do you follow or handle? I want to look at a prisoner in Luzira prison, I mean in Mulago, for example.
Yeah, according to the standing orders, a person who has been evacuated to the prison remains a prisoner, and it remains OC's responsibility to keep that prisoner until the prisoner gets treatment and is returned to the prison. So even when the prisoner escapes from the hospital bed, the staff in charge must be charged, because this person is deemed to be in a prison. And that's why in the majority of cases, we even keep them in the yellow uniforms to confirm to whoever is coming that these are prisoners, and they should not be let to move freely.
Yes, I wanted also to find out, why do you dress them even when they're in private communities?
Yes, it's a norm. You know, a uniform is an identity. And the moment you discourage the identity, then you'll get some social problems. So for us, we use it to manage the situation.
Are there possibilities such a person can easily escape, for example, from a private hospital and disappear? Then what happens in such a situation?
A prisoner is a potential escapee. Whether he is remaining with 1 hour or 1 second, he can still escape. Of course, when he escapes, then that means that we shall look for him, and while he's out, he's serving what we call time at large. And unfortunately, when you escape and you remain like 10 years out, when we get you, then you are subjected to court. But again, the time you spent outside is called time at large. You also have to serve it in the prison.
Hey.
Yeah.
That's a very serious matter.
Yes, it's a very serious one, because it's a deterrent.
Okay.
It's a deterrent in itself.
So, Mr. Frank Bayin, at one time there were reports of escapees in Karamoja and some Bunyoro area and some other places. How is the situation today, right now?
Well, for today, the situation is okay. I would call it okay. Yes, we had those episodes of escape from Moroto, but we have since captured more than half of those who went, and the guns, I think now we are standing at 10 out of the 14 that they took away. But basically for us, we know that escape is part of the challenges we have to manage as prison officers.
So let's also talk on one of the commonest things in the country today is the issue of torture. A section of population maintain that you have maintained torture as a form of punishment. Also talk to me about this. I'm sure you've had this claim from a section of the public.
I've heard it from many corners, but fortunately for us, when you are entering, we examine you. We call it strip down. So all the scars, we register them, all the ailments, we register them. That's why even those who talk about torture, they are not telling you that they have been tortured in prisons. With them, they are telling you torture, then you judge. Because otherwise, we are more even helpful to them. Because sometimes we get instructions from court to take, treat, and bring a report back. Okay. And that's what we have been doing.
So how do you treat such inmates who come where either they are tortured from outside, or they are beaten up, or they come very, very sick?
Of course.
Is there, for example, a provision such a person you can say, no, this one we are not able to admit?
Of course, a person who is terminally ill, naturally the police is supposed to take him back to police. But sometimes, because we work together, you accept the person and then help to take the person to police. To hospital. That is very important. But you know, as our system, we start from indoors, our own, then we move to Makshon Bay, then from Makshon Bay, we go to other referral hospitals.
Now, what about special interest groups in prison? I've had cases of elderly and children and people with disability.
Yes.
Is there provision for such a group of people?
We have them in our facilities, and our system is so inclusive that we have managed them from within those special categories.
So yes, let's talk specifically about the children in prison.
Well, the children in prison, according to our laws, they are those ones who came when they are in their mother's womb, or who came with their mothers with less than 1.5 years. We have them, and of course during daytime, those ones who have already started walking and we take them to the kindergartens so that they get off the walls of the prison. And at night, the suckling mothers normally have their special ward to sleep in.
Commissioner Frank Baine speaking to us, and we continue with him. Sir, you are talking about special interest groups by the time we went to the break, and what sort of special interest groups do you have? And give me their status right now.
Of course, we have the elderly, those who are above 65 years of age. We have the pregnant mothers and suckling mothers. We have the terminally sick. We have the disabled. Basically, those are major groups who are vulnerable groups that need attention. Of course, there is an affirmative action on which guides all the OCs that have them to ensure that they also survive in the prison, access justice, and they are treated in a humane manner.
Right. Why should you hold a 65-year-old woman, for example?
It's the law. It's not us who hold the people. For us, we receive the people from court. When court sends them, we receive them. So they are being held by what they are accused of, not by us.
Oh, some of them are sentenced to life imprisonment. That's why they end up into 65 years.
Well, yes, some have long sentences. But in the actual senses, in all categories, we have those people. Remands, convicts, condemned, we have all of them in those groups. And of course, as we know, the resources, people fight for resources like land, like properties. So sometimes they are part of the problem that are got in the soup, and they end up behind bars.
What about children?
The children actually either come with their mothers in the homes, or they get delivered, so that they get delivered at the prison, or others. The law permits that a woman who has committed an offense and has a child of less than 1.5 years, this mother should go with the child to the prison or wherever she will be, so that the child can continue to benefit from the breast milk. So those are the categories. But when they go beyond like 1 year, we established kindergartens, and we ensure that they are not directly seeing what is happening in the prison. And no matter at night, the mothers have a separate way of sleeping compared to the other general wards.
Okay. Now, sir, let's look at the non-custodial activities and being undertaken by Uganda prisons. What sort of activities do you have apart from opening and closing the doors for the inmates?
One, we are responsible for growing cotton massively for the industries in this country, and because of that, I think now about 60% of the cotton on the market actually originate from us. Two, we are also tasked to grow maize seeds, and about 30% of the seeds so far on the market originate from Uganda Prison Service. In fact, we are going to increase, because now the policy is coming out that Uganda Prison Service should be the one to distribute, to give out the seeds for the parish development model for maize. Then, of course, we also do furniture, and under Bubu, we are a major agency that supplies government ministries, departments, and agencies with furniture at different levels. So, of course, we are also participative in the commercial maize farming, and in addition, we also have the food security strategy by growing food for the children of Karamoja, by growing food for emergency under the National Food Security Strategy. We have gotten about 4 new farms like Aswa, Uleya, and the others, because we are in Erupto, we are supposed to be boosting the reserves with food for the hungry.
Yes, parish development model. To what extent are you participating in this project?
Of course, for us,
because prison is not a parish.
No, prison is not a parish, and therefore we are not a beneficiary, and we are not among the targeted group, because they are targeting the lowest income earners. So, but for that matter, we are in negotiations with the Ministry of Agriculture to ensure that the seeds which are being distributed, like they are distributing the seeds of Operation Wealth Creation, should be seeds grown by Uganda Prison Service.
You have the capacity?
Yes, we have the capacity, because we have been actually having too much supply and little area for supply.
Okay. Then furniture, which I remember one time was a very big national discussion.
Yes, up to now, I think every year we are taking on procurement supplies for those who need our services to the tune of about 15 to 20 billion per year. So that's how much we supply in furniture to the different MDAs.
So currently, which areas, ministries, departments, major ones are you supplying?
Okay, we have supplied finance, we have supplied State House, we have supplied the Communication Institute. Then I think we have also supplied to Parliament and the Ministry of Justice. So there are a number of requests that we have been getting and we are honoring. And
so let's wind up now with the recently introduced intermediary course for inmates. It was in the media. What does this mean? I thought you are supposed only to train how to open locks and close the door.
No. Of course, Uganda Prison Service is a vertical organization, and it runs the managerial levels from the lower end as supervisors, middle managers as supervisors of supervisors, and then the strategic, the operation and strategic level at the level of senior officers. So this intermediate one is to capture the middle managers and give them special skills, especially of leadership and performance.
Okay. Yeah. Finally, you were in Rwanda. We got information to that effect. What have you been doing in Kigali, Rwanda? Did you go? Is it personal, private, or official?
According to the East African community arrangement, we have a calendar of rotational 2-year joint military exercises. It started in Tanzania, came to Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, Kenya, back to Tanzania, Uganda. Now this year and next year it will be in Rwanda. So what had just gone, because we started with the concept development conference, we did the initial planning conference, we did the main planning conference. So what we were doing was the final planning conference to prepare for the exercise to kick off in mid-June. And it is supposed to have in total about 300 staff will be involved. But the one of next year is going to be bigger because that one takes up to 2,000 staff.
Yeah, you said this is a military exercise, then what is it?
Military exercise in terms of peace support, counter-terrorism, disaster management, and counter-piracy. Those are the areas we exercise. And that is building capacity for the East African forces and the civilian components to ensure that in case there is an emergency, we don't have to rely on African Union and UN.
But specifically, what will we be doing exactly?
What we do, we call them scenario or assumption exercise. We assume that a country has had a problem and requires the peacekeepers and law enforcers. So then, as friendly countries, the decisions are made. Then, like you saw what happened recently when the East African community sanctioned sending troops to the DR Congo. That's what also had happened to South Sudan. And that's what is in Somalia. So that's what we are practicing. In case we are called to have a joint command with different countries, how do we organize it? So this is what we do. You can't do what you have not prepared to do. So these exercises help us to perfect the command, to look at the best way to do it without having to cause more commotion where people have been deployed.
So since we have just celebrated International Women's Day, really I would want to conclude with this subject only. Talk to me about Uganda prisons and women.
Well, of course, Uganda prisons and women, they are inseparable in the sense that in staff, we have both female and male. Although the female constitute 29% because the female prisoners are few, out of the 264, female prisons are less than 60. So the numbers of women also dictate the numbers of the female staff. For example, we have about 3,000 female inmates, while actually we also have, like I said, 29% of the population of the 14,000 actually belong to women. So, and of course, the issue of gender mainstreaming, like everywhere, remains important. Fortunately, the emancipation is also working out because we have a number of women in senior positions. If you noticed, even when we were in Chiruhura, our women were part of the paraders, exclusively women. Even the band, which is largely dominated, at least this time around, the women were more than the men, because some instruments are specifically can only be played by men. That's why those men had to be left in to ensure that the ceremony is colorful.
Well, thank you very much, Commissioner Frank Baine, spokesperson Uganda Prison Services. I am Henry Baguma, Herbert Chigundu, Bob Brian Mugisha, now saying stay well and keep tuned to BC Radio, because shortly we have news and news hour coming. Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning in to your voice program on UBC Radio. UBC Radio, inspiring Uganda.